let me ask you, how many of you work for companies, for businesses, that sell products or services to other businesses? Let's see a show of hands. Wow, we got a nice big B2B group here. That's wonderful. How many of you work for consumer goods companies? All right, a few. Well, let me give my apologies to you right now because we're going to focus for a while on B2B, but here's your consolation. Your marketing budget's probably bigger than all the rest of us put together. So there is that. Now, how many of you were working in business in the 1970s and the 1980s when Dr. Deming's quality principles took U.S. industry by storm? Let's see. Oh, wow, good. Okay. You look much younger than that. Yeah, you bet. Well, here's what's interesting. That quality wave actually began earlier in Japan, which in 1960 had less than 3% of global car production, but by 1980 had nearly 30%. My point is this. Being early or late in a wave does have consequences. The same was true for the productivity wave. This was marked by lean and business process redesign. You may be familiar with that. And now we're entering the innovation wave. Now this one's a little bit hard to miss because 100 books are being written per week on innovation. And there are over 100 articles being written today for every one article that was written in the 1970s. Now, the first two waves apply to current operations, so they reach a point of diminishing returns. I mean, what do you do next when you get to zero defects? Or if you have your high-tech factory being run by the proverbial man and the dog. You know, the man to feed the dog to bite the man if he touches the controls. What do you do next? Well, in the innovation wave, we're focused on future sales, so we have unlimited potential. So if we figure this out, we'll reach that holy grail of profitable, sustainable, organic growth. Now, what does a winner look like in this new innovation wave? I believe they will master this new science of B2B customer insight. So what I'd like to do today with you is see if we can answer three questions. First, what will change in this wave? Imagine if Detroit automakers could have seen just 10 years into the future. Would that have changed the way they behaved? My first rule of battles is this: never be in a battle you don't know you're in. Now, the battle for quality has largely been won and lost, and it's over. But what I'd like to do today is frame up the battle for innovation and frame up a winning battle plan for that. We'll also talk about this. Do B2B suppliers have an advantage over consumer goods suppliers? And what is this science of B2B customer insight? Now, Dr. Bob Cooper, the father of SageGate and a brilliant researcher, has said that once the average company does whatever it does in the front end, then it has a 25% success rate. So 3 out of 4 products are failing. Now, imagine if you've applied Six Sigma in your process. You've got 3 defects per 1 million attempts. But here we are in new product development with 3 defects per 4 attempts. Nowhere else in business do we tolerate this level of waste and inefficiency. I don't believe it can continue, but the question is, what will change in the innovation wave? And to help sort that out, I have 3 questions. First of all, does your company have bright R&D people? And by the way, they don't have to look like professional models. I see some folks nodding their heads. You've got bright R&D people. That's wonderful. Now, my second question is, do your competitors have bright R&D people? And they probably do, don't they? So, how is your company going to win? Are your bright R&D people 20% brighter than their R&D people? Is that how you win? Maybe just 10%. Well, think about this for a moment. Do you put together an operating plan every year and plan how you're going to grow? And when you do that, do you plan on growing at the same rate as the market you serve, at a higher rate, or at a lower rate? Which is it? Higher rate, yeah. What about your competitors? They get together and they put together operating plans as well, right? Now, do they plan to grow at the same rate, higher or lower? They're going to grow higher too, right? So now we think about this a little bit. We've got all the suppliers feeding into the same market. They're all planning on growing faster than the markets they're serving. And we're doing this year after year after year. As Dr. Phil would say, how's that been working for you? So here's a thought. Could we do this differently? Could we instead ask a different question? What if your R&D only worked on problems that customers truly cared about, and the competitors kept guessing what to work on? Now, would that be a competitive advantage? So perhaps what we should do is think about two parts to innovation. The first one, problem one, is what's the right question? And then the second, problem two, is what's the right answer? So first, we try to address this. What unmet needs will this market reward us to satisfy? And we ask, how can we satisfy these needs? Now, which problem consumes most of your innovation investment? If you're like the average company, a little over 90% of your project spend goes to problem two. Now, which of these problem areas lead to most new product failures? In 1971, that question was asked in some very good research, and the answer was inadequate market analysis, or problem one. Now, since then, I've read lots of research on the subject and have actually met with thousands of workshop participants around the world. And I'm very confident that problem one is still our major problem. So, which of these problem areas could be turned into a science? I actually believe it's problem one. It's understanding the market needs more than addressing the supplier solutions. Now, here's the interesting part. Not only are we underinvesting in problem one, but our very thinking about needs and solutions is actually backwards. So think about this for a moment. Do you have a stage gate process? Let's see a show of hands. Okay, that's great. Stage gate process is a good thing. Does it start with idea generation on the left? Maybe has a little picture of a light bulb? Come on, you know it does. That's fine too. But here's the question. If it starts with an idea, whose idea is it? Is it yours, the supplier's, or is it the customer's? In most cases, it's actually the supplier solution to an assumed market need. Then the supplier moves on and they validate their idea with a few customers, they develop a new product. And when do most companies actually begin to understand market needs? That's right, when they launch their product and they see if anyone buys it. Now, what if we flip this process for a bit? What if we started with market needs and we ended with supplier solutions? I know, this is just crazy talk, Dan. But that's what we want to look at, because there's some good news here. When it comes to understanding market needs, B2B suppliers have this wonderful advantage that most are not taking advantage of. And that's what we're going to explore next. So imagine you wanted to do some customer research, gaining some market insight into belts. Now, you've got a choice. You can either interview people who use belts to convey iron ore or to hold up their trousers. Which one will offer more insights? Generally speaking, it's the B2B customer for 5 reasons. First, they tend to have more knowledge. Your B2B customers, engineers, scientists, professionals, and others, have years of education in many cases. They have training and mentoring that's taken place. And they usually have a lot of time on the job as well. The B2C customer is a little different. Unless you're a really snazzy dresser, you probably remember your belt size and not much more. Now, consider interest level as well. In a B2B buying decision, there's oftentimes a huge financial impact. If you can help your customer load ore onto a ship faster, you could make him or her a hero at work. Also, B2B customers often are more objective. They tend to make their decisions in groups. They have to follow company procedures. And they know they'll often be held accountable for their decisions. In other words, B2B customers are rational because they have to be. B2C consumers, on the other hand, are notoriously fickle and easily manipulated by Madison Avenue. Next, B2B customers tend to have greater foresight. They're usually focused intently on their financial objectives, which means they can often predict ahead of time the benefits that they are seeking. It's much more difficult for a consumer to tell you what kind of belt will make them feel good about themselves, or what video game might entertain them, or what snack food might taste good to them. It's much more difficult. The last of these points is industry concentration. While the B2C supplier may have millions of customers, the B2B supplier has far fewer in most cases. Now, this leads us all to the big so what. Well, if your customers are knowledgeable, they are able to help you design better products. If they're interested, they're willing to do so. If they're objective, their decision-making is rational, stable, and understandable. And if they have foresight, they can discuss their needs ahead of time before they ever see a sample or a prototype from you. And if they are concentrated, you can reach these people, you can directly engage them, you can actually prime them to buy your product before you've even created your product. But here's the thing. An advantage is only an advantage if you take advantage of it. So, are you with me so far? What will change in this wave? We're saying that this wave is building, this innovation wave is building, that's going to force us to reinvent the way we address problem one, the way we think about understanding market needs, the way we gather customer insights. And we're saying B2B suppliers have a very significant advantage in 5 different areas. And finally, we're saying we can move this customer insight from an art form to a science. For most companies today, innovation is a little bit like a medieval comet, rare, unexplained, and totally unpredictable. But we can change that. We can turn it into a science. This science of B2B customer insight can be taught, it can be learned, and it can be turned into a competitive advantage that I believe will make the first 2 waves look like ripples. So let's take a look at this customer insight, and let's answer a couple of questions about the terminology and the principles involved.